and then you probably hear me better.
I certainly do.
Yeah. So the microphone like technique is like, no, you don't really have a mustache, but we say like put the mustache like tickling the mustache.
Imagine tangling the mustache in the microphone.
Okay.
Then you're like in the right.
Yeah, and you can move the stand so it fits better to your mouth if you like.
Yeah. Welcome. We're gonna start the show in just a couple of seconds, but we just want to take the time to say hello without any cameras and stuff on. So just tell that we are very happy that you could take the time to sit down with us.
Oh, great. Yeah. Nice one. Happy to.
Thank you.
Do you have any topics that you don't want us to talk about, or is it free for all?
Can't really think of anything.
Okay.
Yeah, wonderful.
Don't give us any ideas.
So then we just go. So see where it
Press the jingle.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, we're back here at Comic-Con, and now we're going to be international because we have an international guest. Welcome.
Not any guest.
Not any
We're
guest.
sitting here with Garth Ennis.
Hello.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
We're going to just say one thing that could be for our listeners, of course, and for those who are here, that we have one partner in the gang that's the voice isn't really back yet.
I don't. This is probably not the best idea. Go for a podcast without a voice. But I'm going to try my best. Is that okay with you?
Sure. Go ahead.
Let's go.
Yeah, so I'm gonna leave it up to the guys to ask a little bit about you and stuff like that. But I just want to ask, how is it the first time in Stockholm for you or in Sweden?
Yeah, first time.
Yeah.
Never been before.
How has it been?
So far, so good.
Yeah.
I only got in yesterday. Flight was delayed in Iceland.
Okay.
Which was fantastic. Had a beer in a hot spring.
Oh, yeah.
Best lamb I've ever tasted in a restaurant in Reykjavik. I can thoroughly recommend getting delayed in Iceland.
Yeah. So anyone that's getting on the plane, go over Iceland or
exactly.
down at Iceland.
And hope they have to land.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So have you been trying any Swedish like dishes or anything yet, or is it that come later?
You'll probably be amazed to hear that I've tried the pickled herring and
really?
and indeed the meatballs. And
Which one did you prefer?
everything was excellent.
It was
great.
Okay.
Wonderful.
So
Yeah, we usually get that when people try pickled herring is that they eat it straight out of the can, which you're not supposed to do. It's like dog food at that stage. But if you get it prepared correctly, it's really good. So
I was in Norway about 20 years ago, and there was some sort of delicacy, some local fish thing, and I remember the woman in the restaurant said, yeah, it was a buffet, and the woman said, yeah, that's a local delicacy, don't eat it.
that's good commercial for your stuff. And
it'll forever taint the picture of Norway for you in that case.
Isn't that the thing in Iceland? They have this. They have a dish where they bury a piece of shark for 2 weeks, I think.
Well,
And
I
then
wouldn't be eating shark to begin with.
No.
Yeah.
So where would we like to start, guys?
I know that Rasmus had a really great question, if you wanted to start off with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I managed to get some time to listen to you yesterday because I didn't have to speak as much. And one opening question here. Yesterday you talked about superheroes and your relationship to superheroes. Mm-hmm. And from what I understand, you don't really like superheroes.
No, I have no particular affinity for them. It comes down to, oddly enough, how patchy the distribution of superhero comics was in my particular part of Northern Ireland. It was very hard to find them with any consistency. Very hard to follow a story over several issues because you would get an issue and then it would disappear for a few months. But on the other hand, we got all the weekly British comics every week, no problem. So 2000 AD, Battle Action, Commando, all of those, no problem, readily available. And so where everyone else was growing up reading superhero comics and eventually, of course, wanted to do their own take on them, I was reading mostly British war comics. And 2000 AD as well. So that's where my childhood affections lie. And I think superheroes are one of those things that if you don't come to them as a kid, and I mean, up to about the age of 10, you're not going to have that sort of sense of childlike wonder for them.
Exactly.
A bit like religion.
Yeah. We have been talking about that point, like from the start of this podcast, that in like 2,000 years, if somebody unburies some comic books and stuff like that, they're probably gonna think that that's our Bible, because we idolize them in a way that could be described as almost religion.
It's such a strange idea that a person of absolute good will put on a colorful suit and use inhuman powers to do absolute good, and they'll be opposed by people of absolute evil, putting on suits, using their powers to wreak absolute evil. It does sound like the kind of moral division that most religions give you. In other words, it's an idea for children.
And it's probably much of the stories are the same. Like if you look at Superman, you have the Moses story. It's almost the same thing. So you could see where they took a little bit of a little bit of this, a little bit of that. We put it together and we do it our own way.
A child that came from the sky, all that kind of thing.
Right. So following up on that, are there superheroes or superhero stories that you actually think are good and that you actually enjoy?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can see, objectively, I might not like superhero comics, but I can see objectively that some tremendous talent has gone into them over the years. Incredible writing and art. My problem is that at a certain point you're telling the same story over and over again, and therefore that incredible writing and art is wasted. On the 50th time you see Batman drag the Joker off to Arkham, for instance. Aside from that, to me, the great superhero stories are the ones done by people like Alan Moore, with Watchmen and Miracle Man, where he takes the superhero idea to its logical conclusion, or by Pat Mills and Kevin O'Neill on martial law, where they drag the idea through the dirt. That to me is a truly interesting use of the superhero genre. We talked to Jim last night, and we talked about the Death in the Family where they killed off Robin. Right.
And then his work on Nightwing, because he didn't really care for Nightwing either, but he didn't get to kill him, so it wasn't as funny.
Well, you never get to kill them.
No, or they always come back in some way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I didn't grow up with, as you said, in Northern Ireland, you had just this certain comic books that you had to read because you were in another spot than the United States, for example. When I grew up, we had Donald Duck and a Swedish bear that ate honey. That's what I grew up with. So I didn't...
See, the bear sounds good.
Exactly, there's something.
I like bears.
So I didn't grow up with as you said, the childlike wonder with comics. I got into comics at a later age.
Right.
I'm also only 25, so it's still in the beginning. And that's why I like the stories like The Boys, for example, because since I don't have the childlike wonder to bring me into the new stuff, I much rather relate to the everyday problems. For example, like if superheroes were real, they probably wouldn't help anyone.
No, they would be owned. They would be corporate trademarks, which, of course, they are.
Right.
But the first thing that would happen is someone would say, well, these are obviously big money spinners.
Yeah.
How can we make that money? Think about it today, the kind of tech bro mentality would immediately come in, and it would be, how can we get a piece of this?
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I mean, since it's much more grounded in today's world, The Boys, for example, you mentioned The Watchman, for example, which is one of my absolute favorite works. It's because that's what would happen if it happened today.
Right.
And in the same way as maybe punk music is commentating on this, the political climate today, I think that The Boys especially could be like a warning sign, because you mentioned tech bros as well, that we will soon have people in this big position of power.
Yeah.
And we will point to these comics, and that's really weird to say that, we saw this. We've seen this for quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, The Boys was written towards the middle of the second Bush term.
Okay.
Sort of 2006 onwards. So corporate power was a worry. Government wrongdoing was a worry. Of course, I couldn't have possibly guessed that what would come along 15, 20 years later could be something beyond all horror. And if you're worried about that tech bro mentality I mentioned working its way into government, it's happened in the US. Donald Trump has effectively allowed those people into power, into office with him, almost. And you're seeing the results on a horrible daily basis.
The camel's back is already broke, I think. And you can see that. I found out about The Boys through the series, of course. And you can see how much both the comics and the series are affecting people today. Like they're seeing the things that you bring up in the comics and in the series, for example, and people are getting mad about it. So obviously it's touching them in some kind of way that they weren't really aware of.
Yeah. Well, it is because in the story, the corporations do have such a grip on the civilian authority. You can immediately see the relevance of that today, just as it was in 2006.
Right.
So how if you take like the book is perfect, but when they decided or you decided to go along with we do a TV show. How much like creative control over how they did it did you have, or did you just get notice we're gonna do this, it's gonna look like this? Or
I took a step back almost from the beginning.
Okay.
Largely because I don't really want to work in film and TV.
No. Yeah.
I like working in comics. In fact, my ambitions lie in the opposite direction. I'm quite interested in the idea of writing prose fiction.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Because I think there's a kind of a purity to that kind of writing where it's just you and there's no artist, no actors, no director, no one else is interpreting what you do, and you have no one else to blame. You just go out there and it's like this is me, this is what I do. So I'm looking forward to doing a bit of that. But as I said on the panel yesterday, I am not giving up on comics. I think there's something wonderful about that particular art form. And with the right artist, of course, you can do almost anything.
Yeah, and now we are like, you are one of the greats now. Like there have been like you, Stan Lee and Steve Ditko and stuff. Now you're like the top dogs, like you and Jim. Yeah, but for us, like especially from Sweden, like Simon said, we had the same thing as you had in Ireland, that we didn't get all the comic books. We got maybe 3 or 4 superhero comic books, but then they weren't complete. Like they mashed stories together in one book and called it a mega book, and then stuff like that.
It's also the language barrier. Since it's still English in Ireland, but in Sweden it's a complete another, and we usually get them translated.
So that there's it's gonna be a translation error. So when I got to like collect comics as a kid, it was in Swedish, but sometimes you found some English ones, and then what is this? How? But the story is going this way. And then when I got a little bit older and I started really hunting for comics, and I understood more that, okay, if I start from the beginning, like if we take Spider-Man, for example, of course, maybe not from the beginning with the money, but if you start like in the 70s and you get an arc that's very different from the ones that we Swedes were like fed as a kid, because we only get the really colorful ones, and I don't think they censorized it, but they maybe shows the stories more of, this is more for kids. And that's a little bit horrifying. But you get it, like you said with Donald Trump. You have someone who corrects stuff, so this is what you get. Not you don't get the picture. You get this kind.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds to me like what you're saying is a question of translation. And yes, there's all sorts of nuance and figures of speech that do get lost between two languages, unquestionably. I imagine you would have to be bilingual, which I am absolutely not.
You don't know Swedish?
or German or French. I mean, most native English speakers are terrible when it comes to other people's languages. It's just a matter of, it's just our national shame, really. But I think you would have to have a facility with languages, an excellent facility with languages, to truly understand some of the differences between, say, the English and Swedish, as an example, creature. There may well be things that I just don't know have been lost, changed, purely by accident.
Exactly, in the localization.
Sometimes, because I've known people who do translations of things, and sometimes one language will not have the particular figure of speech that the other one did, and they'll have to take a sort of best guess. And they do it in good faith.
Of course. We have Retro Book Club, the Retro Book Club. We work with them a little bit. They do translations of our favorite books. We had the Infinity Gauntlet that Jim made.
Oh, right.
So Johan was over there, made some of the translation. And we can see, like, he translated a couple of Transformers books, right?
Quite a few,
So you can see the persons that get the language and know, because they have read the comic book in English first, so they know, okay, this is where they're leaning. That's a different thing. But sometimes I think there are translators that maybe not shouldn't be translators. They do the easy words.
They do more for work.
Exactly. It's not for passion.
I think that is something that changes over time as well, as we're going further now into the future. The fans are translating.
Oh yeah, they're doing it for themselves. I mean that is interesting. I've certainly spoken to translators who've, some of them are quite disparaging about other people's work in that regard. And of course, to me, as I say, with my complete inability to speak anything but English, it remains something of a mystery. You just have to hope that there are versions of your stuff out there that have been translated in good faith, which I think for the most part they are.
I think that since, as I said before, we had this really controlled batch of comics that we had in Sweden. We usually had the things that got big in Sweden were the Swedish comics, and they were about Swedish problems, like everyday Swedish people. And the ones that we got when we got Batman, for example, he's called the Leather Patch in Sweden.
That's a straight translation.
And I think since it's from the
pretty great.
It's really Spider-Man is Spider-Man, but Batman is the Leather Patch.
Leather Patch
for some
Robin.
reason.
The Leathermobile.
Exactly. That sounds really gay. But what I want to get into is that when we got the books from the US, for example, they were a bit more universal, I would say, where you don't get the interesting everyday man problems. You get the absolute great good against the absolute great evil. But I wanted to get into, like, how much do you take into your comics or your writing from where you grew up, from where, like, your everyday problems?
I mean, I grew up in Northern Ireland in the 70s and 80s. So in my life, the troubles, the political violence at the time were a sort of constant background. Now, where I grew up myself was a kind of quiet suburb outside Belfast. For many people in Northern Ireland, though, the troubles were a matter of... it was quite a violent daily existence with danger, not perhaps constant, but not far off it. Growing up outside that and hearing about it in the local media for 25 years, the first 25 years of my life, it gives you an odd perspective because you can forget, first of all, any idea about absolute good versus absolute evil, because it is a place of shades of grey, unquestionably.
For sure.
The other thing, of course, is what you learn, and this is perhaps the worst aspect of the whole thing, is that far from someone coming along to solve the problem, people will instead find a way to live with it. And it will become a daily existence for big parts of the population. You have two communities at war, killing each other at a steady rate. You have the British government committing troops who, they're not there to end it, they're not there to beat one side, they're just there to maintain a kind of...
Status quo.
Yes, a status quo, a kind of peace. a frequently interrupted peace, but a peace that is not going to break out into open conflict and take out the entire population. And so if you think about growing up with that in the background and realizing no one is coming to help, there are no forces for good. Exactly. There's just a force for the status quo, and that gives you an odd way of looking at life. It's very, very hard, of course, to reconcile that with superhero stories. The stories I was reading in 2000 AD, most obviously Judge Dredd, but others like Strontium Dog and Nemesis the Warlock and Rogue Trooper. You certainly couldn't call them reflections of reality, but you could look at them and see that the notion of an ongoing violent existence had a little more relevance to them, I think.
Yeah, I'd like to touch on just this that we talked about now before we have to wrap up, because I see they're pulling us out here. Because I think the word I'm looking for in this, I grew up in a little bit of a poor town in Sweden, and as you said, the violence and the things that you go through, it becomes background noise. You get desensitized to it.
Exactly.
And I think you can also see that in like maybe the media we see nowadays, even if it's real life or if it's comics, that it gets more and more and more violent.
Yes.
But we're so used to the violence, it's become background noise.
And it's also real violence. It's the sort of gruesome, ghastly things that happen. You can start outside a pub at 4 o'clock in the morning and you can work up to a shooting or a bombing or something like that. And you realize this is a world away from bloodless superhero battles with power beams and lasers shooting about the place.
But do you think that is what has influenced the ultra-violence that is present in, like for example, Crossed? A work such as Crossed or as Preacher or Punisher. Do you think that is where your inspiration to do those comics come from?
I think certainly in the case of Crossed, or actually the Punisher is a very good example. Yes, it led into that, a person who just embraces the idea of an ongoing, endless war. Crossed came about more because of, it actually goes back to that second Bush presidency again and the Katrina disaster.
Oh yeah.
And I was thinking about the notion of people abandoned, no one coming to help them at all, them having to help themselves, and unpunished wrongdoing. You knew that the people in that government that did nothing to help the Katrina victims and at the same time cheerfully invaded Iraq under absolutely false pretenses, they got away with it. They never answered for any of it. And it's that as much as anything else that fed into Crossed.
Yeah, and it's our job to make sure that it's never forgotten. Because if we let it be forgotten and we don't talk about this, it's going to get buried, and then no one's going to know about it, and we're
and it's going to be a background noise.
That's right, and people will, and you can't blame them for this. People will turn towards fantasy, because it's just that bit easier, and it's more palatable. And it's a relief from these terrible things you see every day. And I understand that. It's just that when I'm writing, I can't ignore those things.
So we have two questions. Then we're going to wrap it out. The first question is what we're going to do after this. Is it okay if we could take a picture with the group with you?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. And second of all, do you have anything, or what do you have on your horizon that's the next project, if you can talk about it?
So I have more work for Rebellion, who published 2000 AD. I've got some stories coming up for them. Also Battle Action, which is the revival of the old British war comic. There's another series of Babs, which is the woman barbarian story I did this year for Ahoy. That's going to be out next year. And I have a new World War II story called Partisan. If anyone's familiar with Sarah, which is the story Steve Epting and I did a few years ago about the Russian woman sniper. Okay, so there's a new story called Partisan, and it's not a sequel, it's a companion piece.
Okay.
But it's about a woman in Western Russia, in Ukraine, who, when the German invasion begins, gets caught up in the fighting between the Germans and the partisans, and purely because she wants to keep her kids alive and fed and safe. She ends up becoming a resistance fighter.
Okay.
If you liked Sarah, I think you'll enjoy this. I think it's one of the best things I've done.
I look forward to reading it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
So a big thanks to you
My
for
pleasure.
joining the podcast, the Superhero Club in Sweden, because we don't get you guys so often. But when it's Comic-Con, you just come in like rain. That's perfect.
Yeah, it's really great to have to pick your brain for a while. It's a huge honor.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna hit the intro, and we see you in the next episode. Thank you.